Ever since I started in the business of copywriting, there have been two questions which have come up consistently all the time. So we're talking about 50 years, over 50 years. Yeah? It is generally thought by people who don't know what they're doing, which as a rule includes the overwhelming majority of people in large organisations, marketing directors and so on, that people will not read long copy. It is generally known by those people who actually make their money out of writing copy and selling stuff that long copy makes more money than short copy. This is something I discover anew every day. And very often when I look at my copy and I wonder what's wrong with it, the answer generally is that I didn't give enough arguments, either enough arguments for why you should do what I want you to do, or enough arguments to explain why it is a mistake to ignore what I'm suggesting, enough things to knock down the objections you may have to doing what I want you to do. They all add up to the fact that long copy beats short copy. So that's one question that I can recall being asked ever since I came into this business. It's still asked every day. Every time I run a seminar, as I was 2 days ago in Lisbon, that's something that comes up. Something else that comes up is how often should we communicate with the people that we're talking to which is linked a third actually, which is how long should we keep talking to them. Okay, so one example is worth a ton of bullshit, so I'm going to give you one example which answers at least two of those questions. Three, in fact, all three. Yeah? The most successful person I know of who started as a copywriter in the world today, as far as I know, is the guy who runs Agora. He owns Money Week. He writes a really, really funny commentary every week in Money Week, and the last page started out as a copywriter. I don't know how much Agora turns over, but I know it's in billions of dollars. One of his businesses is called the Daily Reckoning, and because I know you're extremely intelligent as you're watching this, you will instantly realise that anything that is called the Daily Reckoning will be of a daily nature. Consequently, every day I get from Daily Reckoning a message, and the Daily Reckoning is all about investment. And I'd like to draw your attention to the Daily Reckoning I received on the May the 20th, 2014, yesterday. Yeah? If you're wondering how long it is, the answer is it's 2,772 words. So these people think that people are actually going to be willing to read that many words. I actually worked out the number of words in a previous Daily Reckoning. It was 2,888, so they tend to write rather long copy. The reason they tend to write rather long copy is because they make shed loads of money. Shed loads of money. The reason they don't worry about whether it's long copy is they don't expect me to read every one of their things. I don't want to, I don't need to, but I know that generally speaking, if I do read it, I'll find something interesting. And since they're selling investment, they really don't need many people to take action for the Daily Reckoning to be highly profitable. The format of the Daily Reckoning, and I'm going to show you what it looks like now. You look at the format, it's very, very interesting. You're probably familiar with such titles as the Daily Mail, the Daily Express, and so on, or the Evening Standard. Things that come out every day. Yeah? So interestingly enough, the title and the format fit each other. This format, in fact, is really rather like a newspaper format. It's got headlines and it's got little articles in it. And so that's the way it works. Now, I'm not going to go through all the copy here, although I recommend to you that if you wish to be better at writing copy or better at understanding what makes copy work, then you study the Daily Reckoning, whether you're an investor or not. Yeah? I almost forgot, I did mention how long should you keep on writing to people. Well, the Daily Reckoning keep on writing to you until you tell them to stop. And that's what I do. I have quoted elsewhere one of my favourite people who was the managing director of the most interesting part of the Hargreaves Lansdown organisation. He's semi-retired now, but I once asked him, how long do you keep following people up? And he replied, until they give in. That is the principle. Why is it a good principle? Well, I'm going to show you a little chart now. I hate charts, I hated mathematics. Maybe you do too, but this is an instructive little chart. Now, elsewhere I will have told you that something I didn't invent or come up with, that advertising is salesmanship in print. This is advertising, this is salesmanship, this is what we're doing. All direct mail is advertising. And what do salesmen do? The really good salesmen are the ones that keep following up. The salesmen that don't do very well are the ones that don't keep following up. They persist, the good ones, the bad ones give up. I can tell you this because I've run a sales force. It's amongst one of the many things I've done very badly. I'm amazed I got away with it, but I noticed that the salesmen who did best were the ones who were persistent, who never gave up. And I can remember a few years ago, and for quite a few years, I had a client called Everest, who are big in the home improvements business, who are not doing so well since I stopped working for them. It's nothing to do with me at all. It's to do with something that happened internally. They changed everything for no very good reason. But when we got the Everest account, the first thing we did was we thought, who really understands the problems of selling Everest products? And we knew that the person who really understood the problems of selling Everest products would be the person who had to go and sit in front of prospects every day. A salesman. The best salesman to talk to would be the best salesman. So we arranged to have a pitch from the best salesman at Everest. He didn't know we were not genuine prospects, and he went through his usual pitch, which was fantastic. And we based our direct mail on what he did to a large extent. And the other thing we noticed was that if we didn't buy at the time, he wasn't bothered. He kept following us up for 6 months, until eventually my partner said that we'd emigrated. That was the only way to get rid of him. That's the right attitude to have. Yeah? Never give up. So I mentioned the chart. Now have a look at the chart. You see it's a lovely little chart with a curve on it. And you will see that most of the sales for the average thing that's being sold are made right at the beginning, or the biggest proportion, 48%, are made at the beginning. But you notice that if you want to get up to 97%, I think it's 97% or 98%, I'm very slapdash. I'm not looking at the chart right now, but I think my memory's okay, surprisingly enough. 97 or 98% of the sales are actually made after 7 calls. That means if you give up after the first call, you've just missed just about half your sales. So that's a way of answering the question, how long should you keep sending stuff out? So as I say, the Daily Reckoning sends stuff right out. The Daily Reckoning keeps on sending stuff until I give in. But let's have a look at the copy for the Daily Reckoning and see what we can learn. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but just look at the subject line, better to die tomorrow instead of today. I ask you, you're a human being, I assume, because I'm more or less a human being. I'm fading fast, but I'm still here. And I concentrate quite a lot on when I'm going to die. But it's undoubtedly true that it's better to die tomorrow than today. And it's also undoubtedly true that that's a headline that is bloody hard to resist. Yeah. So what's the secret of sending out stuff every day? What's the secret? The secret is you try and think of really, really good headings. Yeah. I'm not going to go through the whole 2,700 and whatever words. But you'll see the third point here in the subhead, plus Paul Mampilly with a tear-jerking story based on true events that might convince you to do well by doing good. That's interesting, a tear-jerking story. So instantly you say, what is this tear-jerking story? And how can I do well by doing good? And so we go down, further down, a very, very good piece about economics, about the fact that printing money is not necessarily a very good idea. And here's Mr. Paul Mampilly's article. Make 200% on a life-saving drug that could save your daughter. If you don't understand how good that is, don't pursue a career in marketing, yeah, and certainly not in copywriting. Do something else. Help old ladies across the road, whatever you like, you know, but don't. So you see, it's just like a real article. It's got the good title, and then it's got the author by Paul Mampilly, just as you would have in a newspaper, and then a great opening. You need to know that this is a true story. You also need to know that the names of the person and the dates of the events have been changed to protect the identities of the people involved. Yeah. Just like it might be a piece on TV or in a newspaper, and then a phenomenal opening on August the 7th, 2007. Grace Mary Lovejoy died. She was exactly 10 years and 8 months old at her death. There are so many little things that make the difference between good copy and bad copy. Those dates, that precision, I can promise you, will work about 50% better than a vague statement about she died recently. Yeah. And then, as Madeline Helen Lovejoy described it, so you give the precise name. The noise was coming from Grace Mary's heart machine. Doctors rushed into the room, hovered over Grace Mary, and began performing resuscitation procedures. As they continued to work on Grace Mary for 2 more hours until they told us they've done all they can for her. Grace Mary has fought hard, and it has taken a toll on her small body. She cannot take much more of this. You need to make a decision as to whether to continue to resuscitate her or let her go. I had to make the hardest decision of our lives. Our little girl was called home that day, etc. Yeah? Tear-jerking. It's a story. Again, stories that make people cry are incredibly strong. Yeah. I'm not going to go through all that. You can go through it. I recommend you do go through it because you learn lots about writing. I don't want to bore you by prattling on when somebody's giving you a demonstration. And as Einstein said, demonstration is not only a way to teach, it is the only way to teach. Now, what I want to point out to you, again, little thing on the right, lupus, or Mr. Lupus as I'm going to call it, is a disease that stalks its victims like a murderer. Is that strong or what? Yeah, very good writing. What I want to point out to you as you go through this piece, as you get towards the end, you will notice there is a box. Have you come across this coin? You see they slot little things into the copy that might be of interest to you as an investor. I'm lost in admiration for their format. One of the many, many things that I think, which I do every day, I say, Drayton, you must get better. You should try this. You haven't tried it yet. So I keep on trying things. And that's one of the things I want to try. I want to try something with this sort of format. And you see here, click now for the amazing story. But when you get to the bottom, you suddenly realise that what this man has done is started by giving you a tear-jerking story, and in the end, he's selling you an investment. It's from tears to greed. Yeah, it's an extraordinary piece of copy. Very, very good. Look at this. Another great line. Other biotech investors don't want to buy a stock until after the interim results are released, so they will wait. A little reason why you should jump in before other people do. Yeah. So there you are, a wonderful piece of copy. You'll notice it's got a PS. because we know that PSs work, don't we? You don't know that PSs work. Well, you do now. People look to see who has written to them. Yeah. So there's an example of a wonderful piece of copy. Now, and there's a description of the author to describe why he is worth listening to. Down at the bottom, no details missed out. Be sure to add drdailyreckoning.com to your address book. No trick missed. Now I'm doing this in case you didn't get the beginning of this message, how this message came to you. I'm doing this for three reasons. I'm doing this because you may fall into any one of three categories. First category, you may be one of my subscribers to Ask Drayton. Ask Drayton has now reached its 12th month. So some of you have all got up to month 12. And by the way, if you want to get all the months in one fell swoop, you can. That's another subject. I'm not really here to sell you anything. The 12th month is going to come out about 10 days late. It's simply to do with the fact that I've been in Portugal. My partner Al, who produces me like a rabbit out of a hat, is off to Greece. So we'll be a week late. And this is a little something for extra to keep you going. To everybody who subscribes to Ask Drayton, I hope you find it useful, because that's the only reason I do Ask Drayton. You may fall into a second category. You may be somebody who's thinking about another thing that we offer, which is Andy Bounds Online. And Andy Bounds Online is all about how you sell to people face to face. Not entirely, but almost entirely. How you sell to people face to face. Because if you can't sell to people face to face, even if it's as simple as introducing yourself to somebody in the hope they might do business with you, well, Andy tells you all about that sort of stuff, and he taught me a hell of a lot, so maybe he'll teach you a hell of a lot. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, go and have a look at Andy Bounds Online. He's a real laugh, because like me, he's from Liverpool. Of course, I escaped from Liverpool many years ago, which is why I don't have a Liverpudlian accent. And the third category you may belong to is, you may from time to time get messages from me. You may get messages from me every day. Actually, you get messages from me normally 6 days a week. I'm sorry, but I hope I've explained to you why you get messages from me 6 days a week. You don't have to read them, but you may read some of them. And you may yourself have a marketing problem or a copy problem. And you may be wondering, could we help? Well, and the answer is yes, we can help. We help people all over the world. And so if you've got anything you think you'd like a little bit of help on, maybe better copy, maybe better thinking about the way you're marketing, maybe advice on how you can get more leads, whatever it may be, then the person to talk to is Gerald. Gerald, who is much more organised than me, and he's in charge of the young birds, and they're the people who work with me to try and help people like you if you fall into that category. Whichever category you're in, just click on the appropriate link and we'll respond. Thank you very much for watching.